Hello again everyone, it's Rob from Buxton Mountain Rescue with you once more. Now this time I'd like to talk about what I wear for a walk in winter here in the Peak District. Now if you saw the film that I made on the Buxton Mountain Rescue YouTube channel about what I've got in my winter rucksack, and if you haven't seen it, why haven't you seen it? Watch it after this one. But if you've seen that, you'll know that I talked a little bit about the importance of layering in clothing, and I also talked a little bit about what clothing's made of, and that's kind of the basis of what I'm going to talk to you today, along with our principles of what to wear generally. All right, so let's start with base layer. In our layering system, I go with a base layer, some sort of mid layer, and an outer layer or a shell layer. So on a base layer, so if you look at what I'm wearing at the top here, this is a synthetic base layer. And the job of this item is to kind of trap the warmth that I'm generating in my body inside, but also let any moisture that I generate by sort of sweating as I'm powering uphill through the snow, let that kind of go through to the outside as well and not stay near me. This brings me on to the importance of clothing material or textile. Yeah, if you think about lovely cool cotton for the summer, that's not so good in winter, because if you wash your pair of jeans, for instance, think how long they take to dry on the line or on the aero, whereas something like this, which is sort of a technical synthetic layer, will dry much more quickly, and that's because it moves moisture away, and that's what I want. If I'm walking uphill steeply in winter, and I'm working hard, I'm perspiring, I want this to work a bit like a wick. If you think about a wick in an oil lamp, it draws up that moisture to the top where you can burn it, and that's what a wicking layer does. It takes moisture away from you, so you're not stuck with clammy wet clothes, because when you stop, have a bit of a breather, slow down, you start to cool down. If your clothes have got a little bit damp from your perspiration, that's going to make you cold, isn't it? So the base layer, its job is to keep you warm, trap that warmth that you generate, but also move and transport any moisture away. So I've got this is a synthetic base layer. You can get ones made of merino wool, natural fibers. They do exactly the same sort of thing, really good. But let's not think about wearing something cotton when we're moving around the hills in winter. Now on my lower half, you might think I will be wearing a pair of these. What a delightful fashion item, eh? Now I don't want you to imagine me standing here and wearing these, because that would not be pleasant, would it? However, some people might be keen on wearing a pair of long johns, but for me, when I go for a walk, I'm not going to choose that. If I'm fairly static, so if I'm teaching rock climbing at Stanage for instance, not really moving around very much, certainly not generating a huge amount of heat, then I'm going to will be wearing a pair of long johns, a pair of base layer for my lower half. But the principles of layering is that I can be flexible. Yeah, if I get too hot, I can take stuff off, yeah, without having to take off everything. So if I'm walking around the Peak District and the sun suddenly comes out, it stops snowing, stops raining, I don't want to be taking my trousers off to take my base layer off. So for me, when I'm going for a walk, I'm not going to wear long johns, a base layer underneath my trousers. Well, what I will do is start my layering system on my lower half with some sort of trousers which are not made of cotton. So these ones are what's called soft shell. So warm, these are quite a thick pair. You can get thinner pairs for summer, but this is quite a thick pair of soft shell trousers. There is a certain amount of water repellency. They're not completely waterproof, but they will keep off a bit of snow, a bit of rain. Most importantly for me, they keep the wind off as well. Yeah, it doesn't really matter what you wear, as long as you're not wearing cotton. Yeah, wearing something synthetic. Yeah, a lot of tracky bottoms these days, if they're made of something synthetic, they'll be great, but cotton ones not so good. Yeah, so for me, a pair of soft shell trousers, but something along those lines that's going to keep you warm, obviously, but also not let any sweat build up in there from kind of cotton fibers or something like that. The next thing I might want to wear is sticking with the layering system. So layering's really important, as I mentioned. I want to trap warm air between layers, stop it escaping, keep me warm, but also I want the flexibility. If I just put a massive, great, thick, warm, really insulated and waterproof coat on top of this now, okay, in certain situations that's going to be great, isn't it? Perhaps if I'm standing around, but if I'm walking, sometimes I'm going to be going slowly, taking some photographs, sometimes I'm going to be powering uphill and getting hot. There's no flexibility there really, is there? So I want to be able to take off one layer, maybe put another one on, take off 2 layers. I want that flexibility. Now, for me, and it's entirely optional, I kind of like to have, as my next layer in winter, a gilet. It might be because maybe I'm getting a bit old and I feel the cold a bit more now. Maybe I'm just Nesh, who knows. But for me, a gilet is a good option to have on next. This one's synthetic again. It's got a fleece back, and it's got a little bit of sort of windproof and warm protection on the front there, and I think that gives me a nice sort of compromise between being overly bulky with some warm layer, but something else that's just going to keep me a little bit warm, gives me a little bit more flexibility as well. So that's kind of my base layer really. So my next layer is going to be the mid layer. What can I wear? Okay, so a good option for a mid layer is a fleece, a good old classic fleece. You can pick these up anywhere for not very much money. Good thing about fleece is, just like the other bits of synthetic insulation and clothing that I've got on, it's going to keep that warmth in. All that kind of fleeciness, all that lovely warmth is going to trap that warm air, but it's also going to allow perspiration and moisture to leave my body and keep me warm when I stop, so I'm not standing here in sort of clammy, wet clothing. So fleece, really good option. What else could I choose? Another option is a soft shell jacket. Now this is a Mountain Vulcan jacket, similar sort of material as the trousers that I mentioned earlier. This is quite a nice thick warm one. It's got a bit of a fleecy inside as well, so this one's really designed for winter, although you can get summer ones. We have a version of this on the Mountain Rescue team as well. The good thing about this, as well as the warmth of the fleece that I was wearing before, this has got a lot of windproof properties as well. I've got warmth, I've got windproofing, again, soft shell, as I mentioned with the trousers. There's a bit of water repellency here as well. So that's going to keep a bit of snow off, a bit of rain, but I'm not going to wear it in driving rain for any length of time. But what I'm wearing at the moment might be enough if the weather's nice in winter without having to put an outer shell on as well. So the soft shell can be a really good compromise. There are other options I could use as a mid layer though. So another option for a mid layer. I've kind of got a bit of a hybrid jacket on here now. So it's got fleeciness, which is going to keep me warm, but also let a lot of perspiration move as well. But it's also got panels which have got a very thin layer of synthetic insulation in there as well, and a bit of windproofing properties too. So there's another option. Doesn't really matter what it is, but some sort of mid layer or mid layers, you could wear more than one, are going to be a really good option for when you're moving around, and you can flex and you can mix and match with all sorts of mid layers just to kind of get what's right for you for when you're walking. And don't be afraid to stop and change either. Be bothered to actually change what you're wearing. Don't end up sweating like crazy because you've got too much on and you're powering uphill. Be bold, start cold is what some people say when they leave the car park. You're always going to generate a little bit of heat, aren't you, when you start walking. But don't be afraid to use the flexibility of layering so that you can stay comfortable, stay warm, not get too hot, so you don't get sweaty clothes when you stop. That's a bad thing, isn't it? So that's mid layer. Okay, outer layer or shell. I guess most of the time these days we're going to be wearing jackets and over trousers made from Gore-Tex, aren't we? Which is a great fabric, and there are other sort of ones that are similar, but basically it's a membrane that stops that water liquid getting in, but also to an extent allows water vapor out. So even though we might be getting a bit warm inside, it's going to let some of that perspiration out. So again, keeping us warm but also crucially dry inside as well. Now I guess a lot of the time in winter I'm going to be wearing my base layer, my mid layer and my outer layer, my shell, just routinely probably, even if it's not chucking it down with rain. Yeah, a waterproof jacket's not just for when it's raining or snowing, but also it's going to keep the wind off, and it is just another layer to keep me warm. So I'll probably be always wearing my waterproof jacket, and maybe also for similar reasons my waterproof trousers as well. Yeah, it's an extra layer. Remember I talked about why I don't like wearing long johns in the winter, but it's an extra layer that I can put on my lower half of my body just to kind of keep that bit warm as well. Now I've also got some Gators on as well. Now generally speaking I'm not a massive fan of Gators, but in winter I grudgingly have to admit that they've got their place. Why is that? Well, because we're trudging around sometimes in deeper mud, we're trudging around in wet moorland over the tops with heather and stuff like that, and also deep snow as well. And what we don't want is any wetness to get down inside our boots, do we? Yeah, that can really spoil your day, maybe even give you blisters if you're marching around with wet socks and wet boots. So trying to keep that wetness out of your boots is crucial. I've got my Gators on underneath my waterproof trousers. Yeah, why have I done that? Because you quite often see people walking around with their Gators over their waterproof trousers. Bit of personal choice, but for me I like to think about the principle of roof tiles on a house. If you think about how they're stacked a little bit like that, aren't they? So the water will run from the top of one down onto the top of another and go off your house, not down on the inside of your house. So I kind of think about the same principle for my Gators. I want them to do their job about keeping stuff when I step in deep snow. I don't want that snow to come over the top of my boots. I want them to do their job, but equally if it's raining or snowing, I want that rain, that water to run down my over trousers onto my Gators and then onto my boots and off, not inside my Gators and then run the risk of having that water going down inside my boots. So that's my preference, okay? Other people might choose differently. So, other things to add then, clearly hat and gloves are really useful, and keep them handy, okay? I generally will keep, if I'm not wearing them, keep my hat and gloves in my coat pockets so they're easy to hand. Yeah, if I get a bit too hot, I'm going to take my hat off and just flex like that and put it in my coat pocket. I'm not going to stop and get it in or out of my rucksack. I'm going to put them, hat and gloves, in and out of my coat pockets so they're always there. Now, useful things these days, we can get the really a nice thin pair of gloves. Yeah, something like this, which might be enough, mightn't it? Just on a little slightly chilly day, not too windy, and you can get gloves like this these days, which have got a little kind of some sort of filament in the fingers and thumbs, where you can still work your phone and take that all-important selfie when it's looking awesome and you're looking heroic in the snow. Yeah, so they can be quite useful as well. And a hat. Yeah, for me with a really short haircut, you can imagine that a hat's really useful, but for everybody it is as well. Whenever you need it, put it straight on, yeah, and put it away again when you don't need it. It's a really good way of flexing, part of your layering system. Yeah, make sure it covers your ears, that's really crucial as well. Yeah, so just keep on flexing that layering system. The people who've been on overseas expeditions with me will know one of my really annoying phrases is, be bothered. Yeah, be bothered. If you're too hot, yeah, take some layers off. If your hands are getting wet through and your gloves, you've been wearing them all day in the driving rain, be bothered to take them off and put your spare set on. Yeah, and another saying is, it's easier to stay warm than get warm. Yeah, if you let yourself get really cold, it's going to take quite a lot of activity and maybe quite a lot of clothing to get warm. Yeah, much rather being bothered, I'm a little bit chilly, I'm going to stop and I'm going to put my hat on, or I'm going to put another layer on, or something like that. So, yeah, so be bothered, and easier to stay warm than to get warm. And the good thing about having a pair of gloves like this, they can act like sort of liners as well, and I can use that layering principle for my hands too. Yeah, so I can just slip that in there and I'm nice and warm, and I've got extra warmth from having kind of essentially two pairs of gloves on. But equally, I can take my hand out of that one if I need to fiddle around with zips or my camera or whatever, and I've still got a pair of gloves on in winter. Now, another thing I mentioned on the what's in my winter rucksack video, which you're going to watch, aren't you, was having an extra layer to put on when I stop. Yeah, when I'm taking some photos, when I'm having lunch or whatever. Yeah, an extra layer. And again in that video, watch it for detail, but I mentioned the importance of having a synthetic warm jacket. And again, on Buxton Mountain Rescue, we have a version of this sort of thing as well, sometimes known as a Belay Jacket or a synthetic duvet jacket, but it's a jacket that's full of synthetic insulation, a moderate amount of waterproofness, but it's not completely waterproof, and it keeps the wind off as well, so multifunctional. But the beauty about that is, even though I might have been walking out in the rain or the snow or the sleet or whatever with a synthetic jacket, I've got the option to keep the warmth that's inside this jacket next to me. Yeah, so with synthetic, I can just pop it on over the outside, not worrying about the fact that I'm putting it on over wet clothes, because this is synthetic. Yeah, and as I mentioned in the other video, it really doesn't matter. Yeah, this jacket here will still do its job nicely over the top there. So that's going to immediately add a layer of warmth. I can feel myself getting warmer already, actually, just in those few seconds. Yeah. So when I'm stopping for lunch, stopping for a drink, stopping to take photos or whatever, I'm going to be bothered to get this out of my rucksack and put it back on. Yeah, I know that prior to that, I've been perfectly warm in my other layering system. So when I finish having lunch or whatever, I'm going to take this stopping layer off, yeah, and just stuff it back in my rucksack and not worry if it's a little bit damp, because I know that's still going to do its job. So there we have it. That's about it for winter clothing that I would wear here in the Peak District. If you've got any questions, pop them in the box below. Don't forget that you can also use a buff, and we've got these for sale on the Buxton Mountain Rescue website as well. So if you fancy one of these neck gaiters with Buxton Mountain Rescue branding on, there'll be a link to our website in the description below. So if you fancy one of these, click on that. Give us a like if you like this video. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. That's really important to us at Buxton Mountain Rescue. Have a look through the channel as well. There are lots of other videos, including the one I mentioned on winter rucksacks. Thanks for watching. See you next time.